I'm going to take a little water break here. My
Oh,
apologies.
you're fine. Is that Pebble Ice? Do you have Pebble Ice in there?
I'm going to do Chick-fil-A. What?
Man,
Ooh.
they have the
Best.
best ice.
So let me. So let me get that down real quick. Edit this out, right?
No, this is
Now
how we're
this,
this is our lead in, man.
yeah, this
This is
is
the good
really the
stuff.
good
Me with
stuff
the
right
allergies.
here.
Yeah.
If you could start coughing, maybe would be
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Just a
yeah,
super cut of
yeah.
me coughing.
right,
And
right.
Projectile vomiting.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, it's Elliot.
And Todd, welcome to Two Designers Walk Into a Bar, an ongoing conversation about pop culture and iconic design.
Today we're sitting down with a new friend.
A designer and illustrator who has been successful working with clients ranging from a hot dog shop
Oh, we could stop right now.
to clients like Airbnb and Facebook.
I bet they have cafeterias with hot dogs.
But what we have in common with Matt Stevens is not only a love for design, but also pop culture.
So we're talking with him about his personal project that grew into an actual project, Good Movies as Old Books,
It's time to grab a bag of popcorn.
and add some rum to your overpriced Coke.
We're welcoming Matt Stevens, our first time drinking buddy, to the bar.
So, Matt, we wanted to invite you to the bar. Well, first of all, just because we like you and consider you a friend. But second of all, because I forgot my wallet and it's time that you maybe picked up a round of drinks for us. We always like to invite strangers to do that. But perhaps even more importantly, you could talk to us about an amazing new project that you have that you're debuting, which is Good Movies as Old Books.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about? I was looking on your social media channel, and you've been doing some really, really incredible stuff telling the backstory about the project. But for some of the listeners, as we begin, maybe talk a little bit about yourself overall,
Mm-hmm.
and then talk about how you landed on this project in particular.
Yeah, sure. So I am a designer and illustrator. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been in Charlotte my whole career.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte back in the day, way back in the day. And yeah, so I've been a working designer here in Charlotte. Most of my career has been working for small agencies as a brand designer, a little bit of a generalist, always
Mm-hmm.
worked for small companies, had to do a little bit of everything. Always prided myself on being able to do a little bit of everything. It was always something that really kept me interested was, yeah, just doing lots of different parts of design. So when I first came out of school, was in the early days of 3D animation. I did a little bit of that. I did a little bit of editing. Finally found my footing more as a brand designer. Back when we used to print things more than we do now, I was a print designer. And so, yeah, I just sort of cut my teeth at local agencies and bounced around a little bit and then landed at a spot and worked my way up eventually to creative director. But again, it was a small shop. So, still did a lot of hands on design along with some management. And then, yeah, I think for me, I reached an age where I had a family I needed to support, was looking for sort of what was next, kind of in my late 30s, and not a whole lot of just creative director positions lying around. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
I started exploring the idea of reconnecting with some of my illustration roots. This was kind of back in my late 30s. And so I just started doing a lot of personal projects, and that just became something that really, this was back when kind of Twitter felt much smaller and Instagram wasn't even really around yet. But I started doing a lot of personal work. I did some crazy, like, unsolicited rebrands for things that got the attention of some folks online. I did a project called Max 100 where I was a big sneakerhead growing up, so I took my favorite sneaker from the from the 80s, and I illustrated it 100 different ways
Mm-hmm.
back before AI could do that, do that in about 10 minutes. I did it the old fashioned way. So, yeah, that got me a lot of attention. And so I just started making connections. This was while I was still full time at an agency, and I started getting my freelance was growing. I was went through a phase about a year of kind of burning the candle at both ends, where I was working full time, doing a ton of freelance work, doing a lot of continuing to do a lot of self-initiated projects, just because it was, to be honest, it was just, I was making lots of connections. I wasn't sure
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
do next, but that led to a connection with the design team at Facebook, and also led to a project with a local restaurant brand. And those two things combined were enough for me to kind of take the leap. I jumped out. I went out to Facebook for 90 days and worked on site there. That was a really wild experience, very cool, a lot of fun. And then worked on this local restaurant brand. It was JJ's Red Hots, which unfortunately just had to close after a great run, but was one of my favorite projects I've ever worked on, and have continued to work with them for 10 plus years. So yeah, so I found myself out at Facebook. I was there for 90 days. They offered me a job. It just wasn't a great fit. It wasn't really
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted to do, but it got me a lot of connections in the tech world.
Mm-hmm.
So I came back to Charlotte and just sort of used those connections and the ongoing JJ's work, and just tried to grow my own studio. So I've been doing that for about 11 or 12 years,
Mm-hmm.
and continue to just, do a combination of design and illustration. Some people know me more as like a brand designer. Some clients know me more as an illustrator. And I think that combination of those things, those two sides, have been really good for me. One, to keep me interested. Two, just Charlotte's still a little bit of a smaller market, and in my opinion, and it's just been allowed me to have kind of two revenue streams, because I am able to tap into both. So that's sort of the background of how I came to be where I am kind of as a designer. Did you want me to go a little bit into how the book started?
Yeah, one of the reasons that we wanted to talk to you, and I've
Mm-hmm.
been following your work for a while, I think you and I originally met, I think was when you were doing an AIGA Charlotte event where you were talking about
Mm-hmm.
JJ's Red Hots and the
Mm-hmm.
background of that project, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And that got me into looking at some of your other work. And, since you and I have known each other since then, I've been keeping up with what you've been doing. And one of the things I've always enjoyed is your work, I think, really hits for me because it is definitely pop culture centric in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ways. It's very
Yeah.
plugged in on a lot of levels. And that was one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you today, was
Okay.
because of that sensibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a result of that, your book project slides really right into that space.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe talk a little bit about just your pop culture sort of bona fides, why you've zeroed in on what you've zeroed in on.
Sure.
I mean, Todd and I have yapped about that enough that it's probably good for someone else to yap about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I love design, but my interests are broad. I grew up a comic book kid, but I wasn't an athlete, but I love sports. I just loved lots of different things. Like, I was kind of a consumer before there were so many channels to consume things. So
Uh-huh.
grew up on dumb TV shows, and grew up watching Pee-wee's Playhouse, and grew up on all these kind of strange combination of things. Movies were a huge part of my life. Just have always loved movies. Yeah, so I think I was just a big consumer of things, and I don't know. So many of my projects are just, it's a way to participate in it somehow. It's a way
Mm-hmm.
to, I think
Mm-hmm.
when I went out on my own, one of the most satisfying things of doing my own thing was that I loved that more and more of my work started to look like the things that I was interested in.
Mm-hmm.
There's certainly we all have to make a living, and I'm a big believer in doing a good job wherever you're hired and whatever you're doing. But I never got to do a lot of stuff that I was super psyched about. Like, it
Mm-hmm.
was a lot
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
B2B kind of stuff or things like that. And
Or you are inheriting the look and feel of something else.
right. And the thing itself, I just wasn't that jazzed about. It's like, whatever, I'm
Yeah.
selling,
Widgets.
whatever. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was just fine. That's great. But I just love the idea of being able to participate in things that bring me joy. My favorite projects are things where I'm creating things that are a value add to someone's life.
Mm-hmm.
I've never wanted to be we as designers there's an element of sales to it. Obviously, we're trying to make
Sure.
something as appealing as possible. It's all about commerce. I get it. But the idea of participating in things that are things that just add something to people's life. It's not something they have to have, but it's something they want. So whether that's a retro inspired hot dog restaurant, whether that's a tequila brand, whether that's a crazy book project, it's just I love, or a coffee brand. I just really like participating in things that add something to people's lives. I love working with clients where I feel like I have a big part of what they're doing. I think the one thing that the Facebook experience taught me was you're working with this was during right before their IPO, and there was a lot of they were in a phase of hiring a lot of really well-known designers, and they were trying to staff up because that's what happens in the tech sector before an IPO. You're trying to get your numbers up, and I just none of it kind of like did it for me. You know what I mean? It was like I was working on this big brand in this amazing place, and at nights I was working on this little hot dog restaurant
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for a guy that was passionate about it and really valued what I did. And I don't know, it was a good lesson for me. It was the way that I was connected to what I was doing really matters. Do I care about the product? Do I want to help that client achieve their goal? Do I want to be a part of their vision and their mission? And so I just realized, it was really what was kind of important to me. And so, the pop culture stuff may not all be that important, but I like it. It's important to me. I think it's fun. So anything that I'm sort of personally passionate about and that I can participate in as a designer or an illustrator, that kind of stuff is just really exciting to me. And so the pop culture stuff is, I'm a pop culture kid. I grew up on all that stuff. And so to get to participate in those kinds of things at whatever level is very exciting for me. It's interesting to me. And so I think that's where the pop culture thing comes from, is because that's just I was that kid. And so to be able to use whatever it is I'm good at to kind of play in that sandbox is really fun for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Matt, Elliot and I talk a lot about sources of inspiration, and what you said a moment ago really resonates with me, and I'm sure it does with Elliot as well, where we've always been that type of person that the light bulb will go off at a flea market or at a used
Mhm.
bookstore or whatever, thrift store. So, what do you do now aside from, like, the internet makes everything easy? We can search
Mhm.
stuff, you can get all kinds of things right at your desktop. But do you ever get stuck for inspiration and just go out? And if you do, where do you go?
That's a good question. I don't know that I have a formula or a place. I think for me, it's more of a process thing. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's having something actively sort of mentally going all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the most fun things about the book project, for example, and I'm sure we'll get more into it, but I had kind of these buckets that I had going all the time. So I had this kind of inspiration pool, all this old reference that I was constantly creating this library of all this reference. So I was looking at
Mm-hmm.
Pinterest or all these other websites or old bookstores or anything, and taking pictures or buying some of the books, or
Right.
so just immersing myself in that. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
a big believer in kind of like stuffing that stuff in your head, and then
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing it long enough that I know that it sort of comes out at unexpected times and unexpected ways. A lot of it is about getting away from it and letting it kind of come to you whenever it comes to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big believer
Mm-hmm.
in sort of giving yourself some time. So I had this one bucket of kind of like inspiration going all the time. And then I had this second was just a movie list.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was constantly just either watching movies that I felt like were a gap in my movie resume, things that I felt like I should have seen, or whether it was just rewatching old stuff. And somewhere in the mixture of those two things, it was really fun to come at the pieces in the book in different ways. Like sometimes I'd be coming at it from oh, this style's amazing. I've never done anything quite like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna really dig into kind of this particular style, and then I'm going to find a movie that would be unexpected to be in that style.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be I go find a movie and then I just start sketching on ideas for that movie that kind of lends itself more to something. So it was fun to just kind of like, it was almost like one of those things where you put the bingo balls in and you just roll it around and it just kept coming out in all these unexpected ways. So I don't know that I had like a place or a process other than just
You're
kind of
just
like,
constantly collecting.
yeah, it was like this little
Yeah.
curio cabinet in
Yeah.
my brain of all these things.
Yeah, right.
And
right.
it was fun to, one thing that I really love about doing projects for myself is that I'll often make these little rules for myself, or some way that I want, or some skill that I want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I bought a Cintiq, or started
Mm-hmm.
drawing on my iPad more. It was like, I want to do a project that's going to force me to learn how to use this.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so this project in particular, the book project, I think was more, how do I approach these things, these different covers creatively in different ways? So that was fun for me to kind of mix up the formula and go, okay, for this cover, I'm going to work in this style. What movie would be so if I find this psychedelic late 60s, early 70s kind of style, what movie would just be funky to do in that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to do something like that. It's like, oh, Mad Max Fury Road, that would be wild to do in that, so I'm going to do that. So I don't know, it was almost like creating these little design briefs on the fly for myself that just created kind of unexpected results at times. And so I think it was really more an exercise in like process. It was an exercise in coming at it like 100 different ways and seeing what happened.
Tell you what, let's take a quick break to refresh our drinks, and then we'll jump back in with Matt.
See you in a minute, everyone. Hi. We want to take a moment to mention that if you're enjoying this episode, we have an archive of topics ranging from the Olympics to movie posters,
Think Ghostbusters,
iconic images,
think Bigfoot,
punk music,
the Ramones,
Saturday morning cartoons,
the Pink Panther,
and failed products like OK Soda. Visit our website at twodesignerswalkintoabar.com for full episode notes and visuals, the latest blog content, and to sign up for our newsletter.
Follow us on social media. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Find the links on our website or search using the phrase "Two Designers Walk Into a Bar."
Most importantly, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people like you find podcasts like this.
And tell a friend about us. Send them a link to our podcast from your listening platform of choice.
And if you're inclined, buy our merchandise. Stickers, coasters, magnets, t-shirts. We're designers. We make good stuff, and it helps support the show.
Get in touch. Use the contact form on our website or send an email to hello@twodesignerswalkintoabar.com.
We read every message we get. Honest.
And we're available for speaking gigs. Email us to learn more.
Okay, now, back to the bar.
So let's take a step back, Matt. For the uninitiated, describe the project overall, because we've sort of gotten into the details, but
Sure.
not everybody necessarily knows
Uh-huh.
what those details
Yes,
relate to.
that would be important, wouldn't it? Yeah. So I have a client for the Carolina folks out there. His name's Ryan Khalil. He was the center for the Carolina Panthers. The year that he got injured and hurt his ankle, he had a lot of time on his hands. And I got an email from a Ryan Khalil. I was like, is this the football player Ryan Khalil? But this was way back. And turns out he's a huge creative guy, figuratively and literally. He was a big guy at the time. And so he said, hey, I'm starting this company. I'm looking for a designer to work on a brand. I noticed you had some comic book related stuff in your Behance portfolio.
Wow, wait, so this is a football player, pro football player, and he's
Yes.
at Behance looking for designers.
The man does not mess around. Yes, he is.
Wow, that's great.
So a little bit about Ryan, like he grew up in Southern California. He went to USC Film School. He played at Southern California, won a national championship. As excited as he was about all that, he was excited to go to USC Film School. So he used to make stop motion movies when he was a kid, and his dream was to go to Hollywood and make movies when he was done. Like that's what he wanted to do. So he and I had a really good working relationship for many years. Once he retired, he started a movie production company, moved back to Southern California, started a movie production company with Blake Griffin, who used to play pro basketball. And we were working on, I did a lot of pitches for them. So they would pitch to writers. They would sometimes bring a writer on board and pitch to studios. They were just constantly pitching ideas. He would often come to me with really specific, very creative ideas. And so this particular project was to take a particular property and to package it as a vintage book cover, like an old linen cloth bound book cover. So I did it, and it was fun, and I was like, oh, that was really cool. Like, that would be fun to do that for a lot of other movies. So this would have been probably 5 years ago. And so yeah, that just became a personal project, and I kept going on that till I got to like 50, 60, 70, was posting them online. And then when I got to those higher numbers, I started thinking that I could, maybe do this as a Kickstarter project, as a book. So I did a volume 1, and that did really well and got a decent amount of attention online. So a couple years passed, and I started working on a volume 2. And as I was working on volume 2, I actually had, so these were self-published. These were 100 pieces. So I was in the middle of volume 2, and the publishing agent from CAA contacted me and said, hey, have you ever thought about doing a broader version of this, like shopping this around to publishers? And I thought, no, I have not. So,
and just to be clear, they had seen the Kickstarter, and that's how they became aware of it?
Well, it's funny, when we did volume 2, it wasn't taken off the way volume 1 did, but then somebody from the Guardian UK, which is their big paper over in the UK, wanted to do an article on it. So they did a pretty nice, generous article on it, and that just got it in front of a whole new set of eyes. I got a DM from Spike Lee on Instagram.
That's great.
Yeah. So wanting to know about it, and yeah, so it was crazy. So she had a print on her wall. Someone had bought her a print from volume 1. She didn't even know it was a book. Like, someone just bought it for her as a gift. Someone came into her office and was like, oh, have you seen the second book of that? And she's like, what book? Like, she had no idea it was a book. So that's when she looked me up. And so yeah, it really wasn't much of a pitch to put together, because the pitch was, there were so many pieces out there. We really didn't, you get the idea. Like, it's this.
Obviously, it's extendable. I mean, you've done 100 of them, or 2
right.
volumes.
There's a ton already there. So the idea is out there. We shopped it around and ended up landing at Chronicle. They gave us a really good, generous offer, and they wanted to do a postcard set along with it, which I thought was a really great idea, kind of a no-brainer. Yeah, and so the book was published on April 29th, and I don't know how it's doing. Hopefully it's doing well, but it's been fun to see it out there.
Well, we will definitely post the link to Chronicle on our website, so that could be at least 3 more sales right there.
I hope maybe 4.
Maybe. Well, we're each going to buy one, so each of us. So that's 3.
Yeah,
and then maybe we can get each of us picks one friend, and then that'll
and loan them money to buy.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's a money laundering scheme. It's not even a book purchasing scheme.
Yeah.
So, Matt, here's an unfair question. I first got turned on to this project. I think it was the Mad Max one, the super colorful, groovy one, or Pulp Fiction one of those. And I love all of the ones that I've seen. To you, which one was the most challenging that you've done? And
I was going to ask this question too, Matt, because you've been doing some really interesting posts lately in your social media channels where you've shown some of the different versions of some of these covers for the same movie, where it's tried that, wasn't that thrilled, went and did this, pivoted and did this other one. So yeah, maybe it's like, was there one that you're just like, chef kiss, this is it, and maybe like you hit it out of the park the first time, and then were there other ones that you were like grinding on, or maybe even were there other ones that for whatever reason just you couldn't resolve it, and they're still somewhere on the cutting room floor?
Yeah,
Like,
there are
why is
couple-
it is airplane in there? I think really, Todd, that's what
That's
you're
what I'm
asking.
getting
That's-
at.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting.
That
I
is a
mean,
gap. That is a miss for sure on my
it's
part.
going to be
Oh
hard to
boy.
make that
Oh
any
boy.
better. But
You know what? I
Yeah.
think we can end this podcast right now. I don't think we
yeah,
need to.
yeah. So that's a really good question. Did you have movies and you loved the movie, you were just wanting to do this cover and it just kept not working? And
Yeah, there's a couple of thoughts on that. Like, I guess one, there originally I stayed away from. Well, first of all, it's all very personal. Like, it's all. I was very careful to not make it a best of. It's not a these are the
right,
best
right,
movies or this is
right.
my opinion. I'm some critic. It was really about these are the films that I love. These are the films I'm excited to do something about. But with that being said, there were a lot of movies I avoided early on because they've been, uh, you know,
Yeah. Just done to
so much
death.
has been
Yeah.
done. And so the
Mhm.
challenge was when I took those on, how do I do something different? Every time there would be a pop culture art show or whatever special edition poster, these movies they've been done to death,
Right.
not in a bad way, but just like, what do I have to add to this whole
Right.
visual
Yep.
world of this movie? So, for example, something like Ghostbusters, the solution became very much about do something that you've never seen before versus
Hmm.
this is challenging in some other way. It was really just I've seen so many things, I have to do something different.
Hmm.
But yeah, there were some that were difficult for that reason, and there were some that were difficult because maybe I had chosen a style, so my reach exceeded my grasp maybe on some of them. Like, oh, I want to work in this very painterly like pulp art style,
Hmm.
and I
Hmm.
just couldn't do it. So there were times that there were some that I just couldn't get at. There's
Yeah.
one that's not in the book that we couldn't put in the book legally. Shutter Island. That one was really difficult to get because I kept going after a style that I had a really hard time getting it. Punch Drunk Love, which is in the book,
Hmm.
for some reason, I don't know. That one, I love that movie so much. Maybe I put
Mm-hmm.
a lot of pressure on myself to do
Mm-hmm.
something great. That's something else that would happen. Like there was these ones that I'd saved, and I would find myself overthinking it. I got to really do a
Hmm.
great job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think as a designer, that's often not a good headspace to be in. It's like I've really got to do a good job on this. I've really got to nail
like you
this.
were not going to do a good job otherwise.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think there's a certain relaxed element to it that tends to make them better.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like The Matrix was just I probably did that one in 30 minutes because
Mm-hmm.
the idea was so clear and it was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And there's the thing where Neo at the end freezes the bullets and you see
Yeah.
those circular trails. And it was like, oh, well, this is cool because I can just make this very simple geometric penguin style cover and the people will know.
Yeah.
But the people that don't get it, it's fine. It's still a cool looking visual. So I
Yeah.
love stuff like that.
This was going to be one of my questions. So, like, for example, The Matrix that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
For people who have never seen that movie, I don't know who those people are, why they've never seen the movie,
Right.
but because I'm not friends with any of those people. But for someone who hasn't seen a movie that you love and that you're trying to sort of like give someone a peek behind the curtain at a certain plot point or something
Mhm.
like that, is your intent to reward both the people who are fans of the movie and build enough intrigue with folks who have heard of it but haven't seen it that they'll want to know what the payoff is?
Yeah, I mean that's the hope. The hope is that, I didn't come up as a book designer, so I don't have a lot of wisdom to give you as far as like this is what great book designs are or this
Mm-hmm.
is my philosophy on great book design built through years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I know what I was trying to do with the project was cover has to be kind of iconic.
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I think where you're going is this thought about it's got to communicate like movies are advertised with posters. You go into
Yeah.
movie theater, it's advertised with a poster. And one thing that Todd and I have talked about when we've talked about book design in a few of our episodes is that good book covers are really mini posters
Yeah.
that have
Yeah.
to communicate on the shelf or sitting on a table.
Yeah.
And so there is a natural sort of unity there, I think, a shared sensibility, because it's selling a narrative rather than
Yeah.
a widget. It's selling a story.
Yeah, I think for me, I've always viewed two of the whether, I don't know if I'd say the highest forms of design, but two of the most appealing forms of design are posters and book covers, because you have to capture so much in such a small space. You only get one panel to do it. And so, yeah, I would say my approach is I love the idea of rewarding people who might get it, but also the challenge is you just have to create a great visual that's iconic. That's, if it was, imagine it on the shelf, it has to work, it has to grab somebody, it has to just be, I almost think it's less important that it has something to say about, specifically about the story, in a way that's understandable, and more just like, oh, this is an arresting image. Like, this makes me want to find out what this is about.
Yeah, more of the feel of the movie, or the feel of the story, perhaps.
Yeah. So in the beauty of this, project is I get to be kind of as subtle as I want, because it's not a real cover, but I approach it that way. So something like The Matrix, it's like there's something about that visual that feels very, in the world of the movie, but it's also like, oh, that's that part. I love that kind of idea, and I try to do that with a lot of them. I would say in general, the question I get a lot is, what's your favorite? And I'd say often my favorite has less to do with the end result and more like something that I remember about the process, or something that I remember about the making of it. And so that's why I pull out The Matrix and go, oh, well, that one came so easy, and it was such a clear idea that I remember that one and I love that one. Or like the movie Network, the idea of this crazy newsman who is kind of this modern day prophet, who it has a lot to do, talk about the cynicism of like the news industry, and he was really losing his mind, right? And they said, oh, but this guy, people will watch this guy lose his mind. And he was very, almost like this religious crazy zealot prophet kind of figure. And so I had this idea of him in this pose, almost like Moses parting the Red Sea, but the Red Sea are the color bars on the TV. So those kind of things, I may have no one say that's my favorite cover or their favorite cover, but for me, I look back on it and go, oh, that felt so satisfying to like come up with that idea and marry those two things. And yeah, so a lot of times it's, my favorites are the ones that I just remember making it, and it was just something was really exciting or satisfying about the making of it.
Hey, Todd, now that Matt's given us all his best ideas, how about we leave him with the tab and get to that book club meeting we almost forgot about?
Oh, yeah. Matt, thanks for getting the tab.
Okay, I got it.
We'll cover it when we pick up this conversation in our next episode.
Promise.